There is great irony in the scriptures, particularly in the Gospel of John, that sets the scene for our conversation today that Jesus has with the people in Jerusalem. They claim to know Jesus. They know where he is from. And because of that knowledge, they refuse to believe what he says, even to accept what they see, the power of God at work through him. And they come to a different conclusion about what Jesus claims to have been sent by the Father, to be the Christ, the one they have long awaited. Jesus even says, "You know me. You also know where I am from." But in fact, what he is saying is, you do not know me at all, because I did not come on my own, Jesus says. But the one who sent me, whom you do not know, is true. And that's the call of faith, perhaps the deepest call in these Lenten days for each of us. We claim to know Jesus, but do we really know him? We certainly know about him. We come to know his teaching, his way of life. We learn so much about the faith, but the question is, do we really know Jesus, the living Word itself, the one who has invited us to life in him, to fullness of knowledge? And we know what that word is, the fulfillment of all of the words that God has spoken. And to know Jesus deeply is to be intimate with him, to be in communion with him, to allow that word to fill our hearts. That kind of knowledge takes time. It takes a great deal of prayer. That's why one of the great disciplines of Lent that we're speaking about in these days is that call to prayer. Prayer in the truest sense of the word, of opening our hearts to allow the gift of that word to dwell in us, to allow that word to speak to our hearts. And we know what Jesus is saying. That word is transformative. All who live in that word will be changed, will never be the same person again, because that word is the word that has the power to free us from sin. You know, we have shrouded all of the statues. It's an ancient custom in the church. It speaks of the growing darkness of these days, leading up to the crucifixion of Jesus, but it is also meant to minimize the distractions that come our way, so we can focus more and more on the cross of Jesus. We're justified through faith, through that sacrifice on the cross. We're given new life. Jesus invites us to himself. And we need to respond to that invitation, to grow more deeply in that ability to know Jesus in the way he hopes that we will know him. He speaks about who he is, the one sent by God to forgive sins, to open the way to redemption. He is the living Word. But he also speaks to who we are. In baptism and faith, beloved sons and daughters of God, called to new life, to freedom from the slavery to sin, to live in grace. That's the invitation extended to all of us. How do we respond? Are we growing more deeply in these days through our Lenten disciplines in the true knowledge of Jesus, so that knowing that word more intimately, we may be given the grace we need to make our way through the struggles, the tribulations, the temptations, the disappointments and failures of our human flesh, to grow more deeply alive in the Spirit of God, who is Jesus Christ, who is the only one through whom we have any hope of gaining eternal salvation.